Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to discuss the ACC's newest service line, Transcatheter Valve Certification Workshop. I'm going to start the presentation with a PowerPoint, and then we will transition over to our online portal to walk you through the functionality, how you're going to upload supporting documents, find all the embedded resources as you navigate through Transcatheter Valve Certification. So let's get started. Just before we do get into everything, this workshop presentation is designed for any facility that is in the process of completing transcatheter valve certification. Any information regarding accreditation or certification is highlighted in this training model. It is subject to change at any time. We are continually updating our products, references, shared practices. So there are times when you're reviewing a module, it might not have the most current information. So just please keep that in mind. However, you will have access to the most current as you log in as a registered user. Anything shared today in this training module is confidential, privileged. It's only meant for your facility that's currently pursuing the certification. Excuse me. And the training modules or any information embedded cannot be shared, distributed, or published to a third party. Our objectives for today are to help you walk through the steps to apply for certification, access the online portal, show you how to upload documentation and complete the application process. We're going to talk about the process of certification, phases of certification, the data requirement that's included. We're going to look at key areas for your facility to demonstrate expertise and validate completion of your mandatory line items. I'm going to share with you all of our available resources that are embedded within the platform. You will, by the end, recognize the importance of a comprehensive and interdisciplinary team approach to the certification process. And we're going to talk about the current guideline recommendations for transcatheter valve centers, as well as applied process improvement principles to improve your efficiency and patient outcomes. By the end of this, we hope that you will see how certification can help your hospital develop a strategic plan and incorporate a multidisciplinary approach to this entire process for that transcatheter valve patient. For those of you that are not aware, I wanted to share our updated mission and vision for ACC. Our mission is to transform cardiovascular care and improve heart health, and our vision is a world where innovation and knowledge optimize cardiovascular care and outcomes. As the primary professional home for the entire cardiovascular team, the ACC must work to reduce member burden through training, education, and development of practical tools to navigate the changing professional and healthcare landscape. This means an increased focus on subspecialty and special interest areas. Transcatheter valve certification is an external review and certification process that will assist your facility in meeting standards for multidisciplinary teams, formalized training, and shared decision-making within the transcatheter valve program. Similar to other ACC hospital accreditation programs, this certification has required components that you will need to meet, including continued participation in a recognized data registry, such as the STS ACC TVT registry, in order to attain the certification designation. This is designed as an operational model that merges latest science with process improvement for all facilities performing transcatheter valve procedures. You will see a few line items in here around the STS ACC TVT registry data. We want you to start using that data to support your clinical decisions. Our goal is to link process improvement to patient outcomes and to promote consistent processes across the care continuum, because we know the more you decrease those variations in care, the more you increase your quality and you can decrease your costs. So that is our objective. We all talk about the process of shifting from volume to value. So all of our facilities are dealing with inadequate patient care outcomes, potential penalties, reduced staff and resources. We're all trying to do more with less. We see the staff morale decrease and we see staff turnover, which is something that's pretty new in the procedural areas. So what we want to do is we want to provide you with a roadmap to success we want to give you access to critical and timely data, help you determine your gaps, improve your processes, create efficiencies. Pulling in your staff as that multidisciplinary focus, which will empower them, improve your resource utilization, improve your patient outcomes, and then in turn, improve financial outcomes. The certification tool for transcatheter valves, we want you to use it as a roadmap for your success. So if you're familiar with our other procedural service lines, for this certification, the only required sections or essential components are governance and quality. So to help you identify some of the verbiage that you're going to see throughout, EC stands for essential component, M is for mandatory. All of these line items are required for you to complete your certification. R is recommended. It's for more robust programs. If you meet the intent for those line items, we certainly want you to take credit for those. And innovative are forward-thinking test items. Once again, only mandatory is required for this certification. As we go through essential component 1 or governance, our focus is on program personnel, credentialing, continuing medical education, a charter which is consistent across of all ACC accreditation service lines. We're going to focus on your multidisciplinary committees, the meeting structure and the agenda, annual education for your staff, and of course shared decision-making, which we know is vital for the care of the transcatheter valve patient. Included in this presentation are some resources that I'm going to cover with you. One of those is the NCDR Clinical Quality Coach. It's a practice dashboard that will assist you in your physician licensure status, board certifications. It helps with credentialing efforts, so I always like to highlight this as a resource. You can find this on the CV Quality website. Essential component 2 is over quality. We know quality is the cornerstone requirement for each facility. You need to have an established plan in place to incorporate that continuous improvement for your transcatheter valve patient. We want there to be monitoring and evaluation of your processes so that you do have that comprehensive approach to your patient care. So the first area we're going to talk about is a comprehensive transcatheter valve specific quality assessment performance improvement program. We want to see how you're incorporating that into your overall facility program. We're going to talk about supply inventory, your registry metrics, your infection control processes, radiation safety processes, and any remediation for potential quality issues. Inventory is such a huge piece for these procedural areas. So we're going to discuss what is your process for inventory, how do you request new products, how do you ensure that you have what you need to care for that patient and start the case. Radiation safety, we all know this has been a huge focus. We're going to focus on how are you alerting your team members for threshold doses, how are you documenting it, are you including that in your structured procedure reporting, and we want to ensure that your staff and physicians are wearing their radiation monitors, that you're checking your lead for integrity, and that your staff and physicians are safe working in this environment. Another resource that is excellent if you haven't had time to look at it is CardioSmart. It's a patient education platform. It is an amazing resource that you can direct your patients to. There's all kinds of education on it. I'm going to show you a screenshot of what it looks like. There's an entire section, as you can see here, on shared decision-making, looking at the benefits, TAVR versus SAVR. There's an infographic here that you can print for your facility. We have it available in other languages. But you can see on CardioSmart, you can search multiple heart conditions, drugs, treatments, basics to heart care, healthy living, and then you can find a hospital. So looking for certain quality metrics. So this is always a place that you can direct your patients, or you at your facility can navigate and pull up educational information. Okay, so data. At a recent conference, we had a physician speaking, and he asked about how many abstractors were in the audience. Only a few raised their hands, and he kind of laughed and said, it's the absolute worst job in the world. So after a few chuckles and a lot of nodding heads, he continued on with his talk. The point is, nobody really likes the data burden, but we can't deny the impact on how medicine is practiced and delivered, and you can't change what you don't measure, so it is certainly a necessary evil. So what we want to do is we want to help you look at your metrics, see the value in the data and give it a purpose. The registry, the STS-ACC-TVT registry, is a required registry for this, or any other accepted, we'll talk about additional registries that have been listed as an approved registry, and we'll go over that. And this is just an example of the executive summary from STS-ACC. Another amazing resource to you is the NCDR Learning Center. So if you have had turnover and anybody inputting your data, or if you just feel like you need a brush up or you want to learn more about NCDR, how you're inputting your data, you can go to CV Quality. The link is down here at acc.org. Click on the NCDR. You'll get a drop down. Click on the Learning Center, and you can see there's pre and post tests. There's all kinds of resources and tools, all the recorded webinars that have been completed through NCDR. A really great resource, and you can print your CE certificates from there. Another great resource on CV Quality is helping to give you a framework to drill down on an issue. If you have a potential problem, it's looking at institution level performance, whether it's a registry issue, if you want a framework for a root cause analysis, and it's just really helping you narrow your list down so that you can do a deep dive into it. These are all of the tools and apps currently for transcatheter valve patients. So obviously we're talking about certification. We talked about CardioSmart. There's JACC cardiovascular interventions and JACC cardiovascular imaging. Great resources to you in your facility. We also have clinical toolkits and quality campaigns that are all on cvquality.acc.org. And then this is a list of all the apps that are available to you, to your physicians, anybody at your facility. These are great just to pop on your phone, look up guidelines, looking at mortality risk, anti-coag management, et cetera. So this is a great slide for your resource, and you'll be able to download this presentation. You can always look at it, and you can listen to this as many times as you want to. So this is just meant to be a resource for you. So the foundation of this certification is the two essential components, governance and quality. Embedded in those are guidance statements, references, shared practices, once again, utilizing that data to support your clinical decisions, and then the additional resource of having an assigned navigator with you as you're going through this process. They will have at minimum a monthly call with you, and they will help you achieve this certification, help you with any additional resources that you might need. This is a screenshot of the home screen, which as soon as we get through the majority of this, we're going to navigate over to that. This is a screen print of, once you click on the drop-down caret, you can see that all these are embedded in here. So you've got your primary reference, supporting documents, guidance statements. The comments tab is for you to write notes to yourself to keep track of things. The communication tab is your communication with you and your assigned navigator. The reviewer report and reviewer notes you will not have. It's just related to my access. Guidance statements are meant to guide you for any necessary documentation. If you ever read a line item and it's just not clear to you, you always want to click on that guidance statement tab. It's going to give you all kinds of additional detail. This is your first reference or help. And then if you still read it and you have questions, please at any point send a communication to your ARS with any questions and they'll get back to you. Supporting documents. After you've gone through the baseline phase, you're going to move into the certification or application phase. All of your documents must be in a PDF format. They have to be official documents. We will not accept a generic Word document or an email. It has to have your facility logo on it, a date on it. If it asks you for a policy, it must be a policy. If it states process or protocol, then that's up to you as long as it's an official document. So just please keep that in mind. If it says policy, it must be an official approved policy. It cannot be in draft format. It also has to be current. We do not want old policies. That's not beneficial to you or your facility. Naming is key. Make sure you name your supporting documents so that you can easily pull them from the library, which I'll show you all of that. And there will be examples of supporting documents under the shared practices tabs. These are documents just to give you a framework on how to meet certain line items. So use those as your resource. They are a template. Make sure if you use them, you adjust them to represent your process at your facility. Don't just put your logo on it and it's not reflective of the work that you do. So once again, the communication center, messaging center, direct communication with your facility and your review specialist. You have read and review options. The comment tab is dependent on what you want to use it for. It can be your notepad, just a clarification. The one thing I always remind people, though, is that your reviewer can read it. So if you write something negative about them, they will be able to read it. So just as a heads up on that. Shared practices, as we discussed, they are a template for your use. It is each facility's responsibility to create the document and make it specific to your program needs. They are a framework, they're guidance to help you get there to meet that intent. But we do, once again, want you to make sure that they are reflective of your process. So by the end of your certification, you should have standardized processes, you should have optimized your operational efficiencies, and reduce your resource waste. We really promote a strong governance structure that's multidisciplinary and focused, that improves accountability, improves your workflows, your patient experience, and outcomes. We want to help you focus your PI efforts towards your registry information because we want that data to be impactful. We also want to help you stay in a constant state of surveyor quality readiness. So your platform is going to be your library with all of your documents that are up to date and reflective of your practice and your process. And then your certification conveys your commitment to quality and gives you an advantage in a very competitive market. So the certification process, I'm just going to highlight this, and pretty soon we're going to transition over. You've obviously purchased transcatheter valve certification services. You're going to get login access for 3 registered users. If you need more, please request it. You'll complete your baseline gap analysis, and then you'll move into application phase after that. So baseline gap is essential. Essentially, you go through each line item. Yes, we have this process in place, or no, we don't. Simple yeses and nos. When you move into the application phase or certification phase, that's where you're completing all those mandatory line items. You're uploading your supporting documentation to demonstrate how your facility meets those line items. Your review specialist will review them, and they will either accept or reject them. If they ever reject a document, they will always tell you why. Once you go through that, you'll submit for certification. This is different from other accreditations where we do not come on site for a site review. We do a video site review, which is a little bit different, and we'll go into more detail on. Then you achieve your certification. You do have continued data submission, but you'll have ongoing process improvement and process evaluation through this process. So we get asked all the time, why go with ACC accreditation services? You have this webinar to guide you through step-by-step on what we're looking for. We also have educational webinars for each of our service lines. We offer you shared practices from facilities that are doing things really well to give you a framework. We have all of your latest references to current supporting research. You're going to have that assigned navigator that is your resource to help you get through this. We view ourselves as consultative and collaborative, and we do offer an annual education through the Quality Summit, through ACC, and we have all kinds of networking opportunities and resources. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and we are going to transition to the online platform. Okay, so this is what the online platform looks like. This is your home screen. If you click on home up here, you'll see it's just going to reload it. Talks about that baseline gap analysis. You have from initial access 60 days to complete the baseline submission, your yeses and nos. We talk about facility information, everything that's required. Everything you need to know is listed in this document. It talks about analyzing your current state of compliance at the beginning. Your yeses and your nos are not applicable. And then you move into the application or certification phase. For facility information, there's several tabs. We need your facility name. Spalding Hospital is our test hospital, just so that you're aware of that. You're going to fill out all of this required documentation. It is listed as accreditation information. Accreditation and certification, same platform. What we're looking for here, this is an example of all of our service lines. If you would choose to apply for Heart Care Center, which is our ultimate designation, and we'll talk about at the wrap-up of this, this helps you keep track of all the service lines you're working on, their renewal date, and your status. It keeps track of all these dates for you. If you want any additional information or have questions, there's a link for customer care. Foundational information, we need to know if you have on-site open heart surgery, and we need your NCDR participant ID. Electronic health records. You can see there's multiple solutions because we know in the procedural areas we use all kinds of EHRs. So we want to see what you're using. Are you an Expert lab, an Epic lab? What are you currently doing? Are you performing these in a hybrid room, in a surgical suite, in the cath lab? So capture that data here. Patient population, there's a list of procedures that we want to see your last year's volumes. So you'll simply input those and click Save. Under the Contact section, there's a list of key contacts. Everything starred is required. I will ask you if you have any turnover in staff, you always want to make sure you keep these current. Your reviewer will use this if we need to get you some additional help or if there's any questions along the lines. You can see we have an executive sponsor, the key contact, CEO, your program medical director, lab director, the administrative coordinator and navigator in charge of the TAVR program, your registry site manager, marketing director, because we will reach out to them, post-certification, and your billing contact. There's a couple additional if you want to input them. I'm going to skip over essential components for now. Shared practices that we talked about. We have a TAVR decision pathway. You can view it here, or you can click this drop-down caret, and it'll tell you which essential component it's tied to, and you can go straight to it. Here's a link to CardioSmart for that decision aid that I showed you on the screenshot. And then here is navigating aortic valve treatment choices. So we have a few embedded in there. Once you start uploading supporting documents, they're going to drop over to this library. So this will be a really great resource if you have any type of regulatory inspection. You'll be able to go in here and sort through these and pull your documentation. Once you're ready to submit baseline, you're going to click here. And this is your messaging center. So anytime you type a message to your review specialist, it's going to drop over here as well. This is your library, so you don't ever have to think, oh, I know I sent that person a message, but I don't remember which line item. It will all drop here and you'll have a full library. The reports tab, if you are a paper person, you can click on the guidance statement and it will print you out every essential component, every guidance statement that's embedded in here. You can check them off, you can share them if you want to divide them up. There is a paper process. You can also click print here and you can pick the section that you want to print. Remember, you're only responsible for governance and quality. So the contact us, here is our phone number and a hyperlink to send us an email, or if you have any technical support issues, you can click here. We have 2 separate hyperlinks for you. Additional resources. So this is how to use the messaging center, which we talked about, our privacy policy, our reference list that was used to build transcatheter valve certification. All of our certifications and accreditations are written by a physician writing committee. So every resource that was used in this is listed on this document. So if you would ever have a physician or anyone at your facility ask you where something came from, you can pull up this list. Anytime we do an update, it will be available here. If there's any revisions to line items, we will update you here. And then, of course, your workshop that you're watching, there will be a tab here since it's a newer service line for you to download the PowerPoint and to view this video whenever you want to. If you need to change your password, you're going to click here. Okay, so now we're going to go to essential components. So the first one we're going to start with is governance. Governance is tabbed out. We're going to start with dedicated program personnel, then go to program model, then go to staff education. So the first line item is we want to say that you have a designated transcatheter valve program medical director who is a licensed physician who has initial board certification or is board eligible in interventional cardiology or cardiac surgery. The medical director for your program can be a cardiac surgeon or an interventional cardiologist. And you also have to have a designated TAVR administrative coordinator or program navigator. So if you're in baseline, you're going to have a drop down here. We have this, yes, we don't know. When you're in the application phase, that's when you're going to start uploading supporting documentation. You can see here's the primary reference, this hyperlink. You can click it and go straight to this document. When you're ready to upload, you're going to click supporting document, click upload new supporting document, and it'll upload your PDF. If you read this and it doesn't make sense, here's your guidance statement. So you can see here that you have to have documentation of appointment through a cardiovascular committee or equivalent, the Med Exec Committee, your board of director meeting minutes or documentation of board eligibility. You can upload a CV or an approved job description. Just please know job descriptions must be signed by senior leadership and dated within 3 years. So this is your first line item. The next section, we're looking at that written job description or position description that's signed by the physician and senior leader, delineating the roles and responsibilities of the program medical director. So we want to see that that medical director has overall medical direction and supervision of the transcatheter valve program, that their duties include but are not limited to physician leadership, patient care, clinical leadership, quality of care, and education. We want to see that there's responsible for accurate reporting of transcatheter valve clinical volumes and outcomes to the Society of Thoracic Surgeons, American College of Cardiology, TVT registry, and the STS national database for those surgical procedures. We want to see that your facility has a process to monitor and track your training, credentialing, and maintenance of competence for the management of the transcatheter valve patient. Training and evaluation requirements are outlined by your hospital privileging committee and should be based on published guidelines and recommendations. You'll see here when we click on this guidance statement, there's all kinds of information for maintenance of competence and the pathway from the 2018 expert consensus document. We want to see that your facility has a process or policy for all TAVR proceduralists, both interventional cardiologists and surgeons, to complete a shared decision-making learning module to strengthen their competence in shared decision-making. This can be internal or external learning module. So if you do something within your facility, that will meet the intent. If they attend external training of some sort or do some external learning module, we just want to see that they are strengthening that skill set. We want to see that you have a designated TAVR proceduralist who is full-time, board eligible or certified in interventional cardiology or cardiothoracic surgery as your primary TAVR operator. And once again, that operator can be a cardiologist or a cardiac surgeon, and that your facility has a designated TAVR surgeon. I'm only covering mandatory for this workshop. There are recommended line items embedded here. If you meet this intent, please take credit for that. So for your program model, who do we need to be there? What do we want to see? So transcatheter valve program, we talked about your charter. All of our service lines have a charter. If you want to combine this, if you're cath lab accredited or EP accredited and you want to combine them, that's fine. We want to see your mission, your goals, staffing requirements, your roles, responsibilities, your reporting structure. What metrics are you currently tracking for quality improvement? This is essentially your overall scope of service. The next line item is we want to see that you have, the following essential consultative resources, that you have EP capability for implant of devices 24/7, that you have a 24/7 neurology, stroke team coverage, renal medicine with dialysis capabilities, medical palliative care for patients who are not TAVR or SAVR candidates, vascular surgery support, and that you have anesthesia and hemodynamic support readily available. We want to see that you have a hybrid room, an operating room, a cath lab, a procedure room that has all of the listed following components. You have to have high quality fluoro. You cannot use a portable C-arm. You need surgical lighting, hemodynamic monitoring, temporary mechanical support, cardiopulmonary bypass availability, rescue procedures, for any additional hemodynamic support such as intra-aortic balloon, counterpulsation, tandem, heart, Impella, et cetera. We have circulating, heating, ventilation, and air exchange requirements, power receptacle requirements with generator backup, gas outlets for anesthesia, and your room size should be a minimum of 800 square feet. The facility has to have a process to document your multidisciplinary approach and patient access to all forms of therapy for aortic valve disease. So that's TAVR, SAVR, medical therapy, using a shared decision-making process between the patient and the physician. Shared decision-making must include an individualized approach that uses patient-specific data and is risk assessment driven. There needs to be a clear explanation of the patient's choices and the basis for the recommendation of the multidisciplinary team. Incorporation of the patient's preferences and values must be included in the treatment decision. For the next line item, the facility has a transcatheter valve multidisciplinary team, and we want to see active participation with 50% attendance from each member. There's a list of the required members. So obviously we want to see your cardiac surgeon, your TAVR procedure list. We want to see interventional cardiology, cardiac anesthesia as needed, representation, your echo staff, your radiographic image specialist, your program navigator for TAVR, the person responsible for inputting your data into the registry, your nursing or intensive care unit designee, your advanced practice providers, and a hospital administrative representative. The next section here talks about your weekly meetings. So we talk about at least weekly or based on case volumes for this, your multidisciplinary team to look at your prospective cases, a review to include standardized process for appropriateness of TAVR, SAVR patient selection, consensus management decisions, what type of anesthesia are you going to use, are you going to do sedation, and the consideration of palliative care in lieu of the procedure. In the multidisciplinary team, we have a list for those weekly meetings who we want to see there. For those quarterly meetings, we want to see that you're addressing your metrics from the TVT registry, the surgical database, the STS national database outcomes. We want to see that they're reviewed at least semi-annually. Your TVT registry, there's an easy way to put them into a dashboard that you can print out and share it so you don't have a bulk of paper at these meetings. We want to see that you're looking at all aspects of your clinical care, looking at pre, peri, and post-procedure, anything you need to look into there. For the certification, obviously we're only covering governance and quality, but you should be looking at all aspects of your patient care in these multidisciplinary meetings to see if there's anything you need to improve upon. Looking at oversight of process improvement initiatives, a standardized method to document action plans if you have any quality areas or performance issues, looking at morbidity, mortality, and your outcome review and quality assessments. Very important. For surgical procedures, your facility will need to participate either in the STS Adult Cardiac Surgery Database or another approved surgical registry, as well as hospital surgical committee requirements. We want to see that your facility has a process in place to evaluate transfemoral TAVR volumes prior to offering services requiring alternative access. So if you're doing transapical or direct aortic, we want to see your process to evaluate your transfemoral TAVR volumes. And if I click here and look at this guidance statement, so we're going to want to see evidence of documentation of one of these, so that you've either completed 80 TAVRs using transfemoral access with a 30-day risk-adjusted TAVR all-cause mortality as expected or better than expected for 2 consecutive quarters, or if you are a low-volume center defined as less than 50 cases a year, we want to see a documented established alliance with a high-volume, high-quality program for patients needing alternative access. Always remember these guidance statements. If you are a new transcatheter valve program within the 2-year bridge period, if you're not, you'll be able to select not applicable. We want to see that you have an active, open surgical aortic valve replacement program to ensure that you're offering the full spectrum of care options to your patients. We want to see that you have a process for preliminary procedure report to be available in the medical record immediately after conclusion of the procedure and finalized report available within 24 hours. We want to see that your structured procedure report includes medications administered, dose of radiation exposure, including time and available measures such as dose area product, cumulative dose, et cetera. And then the last one for this section is that the facility has a process for your employees to anonymously submit concerns or feedback for risk reporting and review. So I'm going to scroll back to the top. I know this is a lot of information. For staff education, the first one is we want to see that you have a policy that defines verification of education, training, licenses, certifications for all your physicians, technical staff members, and any direct care patient providers. So remember, if it asks for a policy, it must be an approved policy, documenting how you cover this. The next line item is looking at educational requirements for all of your personnel, including those in orientation, that will occur annually for your transcatheter valve program staff. So looking at airway management, hemodynamic emergencies, radiation safety, moderate sedation, sterile technique, any new equipment training updates, any new guidelines, new procedures, new devices, and access management. And then we list down here applicable education requirements for the following staff, but it's not limited to this. We see a wide variation in staffing models, so we've listed the most common. We also do not require you to have a specific staffing model. We want to see what your defined staffing mix is and your credentialing requirements for who works in your transcatheter valve program. The only thing that we require is that all of your staff working in there maintain ACLS certification. Okay, now we're going to move on to quality. So the first thing in quality, we talked about the active, comprehensive transcatheter valve multidisciplinary team. We want to see that they do have a specific quality assessment performance improvement program. Not only that, we want to see how are you sharing that with your overall facility quality program. Do you report out monthly, quarterly? What does that look like? What is your leadership hierarchy? What are your levels of accountability? We want to see that you have a prospective plan to acquire data in a functional database. So you can see here, there's a ton of information here. So making sure that you have a committee chair, that you have a program director, and you have a dedicated patient coordinator for your leadership hierarchy, for levels of accountability. We want to see that you have periodic peer review of your cases, that you're looking at procedure success, that you're ensuring communication processes external to the valve program, that they're developed and maintained, and then we give you examples of accountability mechanisms. For the prospective plan to acquire data in a functional database. We know, as we talked about, everybody's doing more with less, making sure that there is protected time and funding for collecting and managing that registry data, that you have outcome and complication reporting. So we've given you a lot of information in here, so make sure you take advantage of this. How are you sharing information and getting feedback from your quality team? How are you monitoring and tracking your procedural volumes and outcomes? Tons of information in here. Making sure your PI initiatives are targeting areas of opportunity related to the care and safety of your transcatheter valve patients. We want to see that you have a process to conduct a quarterly transcatheter valve M&M conference, making sure you're evaluating all those cases. The next one is that your facility has a policy in place to ensure all of your equipment are in safe working order, that they've been routinely inspected and they have proper functionality. So it needs to be annually by your biomed department or another department if you have something different that covers it, that your equipment is tested on a routine basis immediately before a case in which that equipment is going to be used, that your staff are appropriately trained in the maintenance setup and operation of that equipment, and that you have representation from a vendor or vendors if needed and at your request or for any service request. The next section is looking at inventory. So we want to see your process to identify and maintain appropriate inventory of supplies and equipment. So we've given you a list of inventory for the transcatheter valve patient. This is one that I'm going to click on your guidance statement, because what we're looking for here is we want to see your process, sorry for the scrolling, process or policy outlining how do you select, order, and maintain your inventory. You never want to have the patient on the table and you don't have what you need to start the case or to finish the case. And we also don't want you to have excess inventory expiring on your shelves. We want to see your venue for requesting new products. But we get asked all the time, you know, do I really have to have this type of inventory on the shelf? you need to have the inventory that is appropriate to provide this procedure that you are performing. So that's why we've given you the list of all the recommended inventory to take care of the transcatheter valve patient. The next line item is we want to see that you have a process in place to monitor and track each existing and additional metric as available from the STS ACC TVT registry, that you are communicating that data to your multidisciplinary team at least quarterly. We want to see that you have a policy which outlines infection control guidelines within the transcatheter valve or procedural area that includes sterile protection, sterile technique, barrier protection, the patient prep, your sterile environment, protective clothing. Does your facility allow staff to wear scrubs from home? Do they all wear hospital laundered? And you can see that here, bunny suits. These are considered a surgical procedure, so making sure that you are meeting those requirements, and you're going to see all the references embedded in here. Looking at PPE, disposal of bodily fluids, special circumstances. How do you clean your room at the end of the day? How do you clean your room if you've had an isolation patient? What does that look like? Making sure that you don't have vendors coming in your lab that have had scrubs on all day and been in and out of facilities that they're either changing or putting on those bunny suits. Looking at that entire process. We want to see that you have a process to ensure an antibiotic is ordered and administered prior to the scheduled procedure. We want to see your policy to conduct periodic risk assessments with infection control within your facility determined time frame. So we want to monitor your compliance with best practice and evidence-based guidelines, evaluate effectiveness of prevention efforts, and that you have a process to contact infection control if your infection rates fall outside your established facility parameters. The next line item is that you have a facility process in place for point-of-use care and handling of surgical instruments, so you don't have dirty instruments laying around with dried bioburden on them before they're ever sent off to sterile processing, that you have a defined process to wipe them down, to put them in containers, and to transport them. EC2M10, we want to see that you have a process to monitor, track, and report your radiation exposure at least quarterly or per regulatory standards if you have more frequent per your regulatory standards in your state. We want to see patients receiving higher than usual radiation dose or referred for clinical follow-up, that you're tracking those doses for your physician operators and your staff working in your transcatheter valve program, that you have a process for collection and replacement of radiation badges, that you have a process to alert team members during your procedure of any radiation dose reaching threshold. We also want to see that you have a policy around monitoring and management of radiation exposure for your staff or physicians who are pregnant working in those procedural areas. We want to see that you have a process to evaluate your lead aprons for integrity or disruptions at least annually, and that you have a process to determine the parameter and replacement of your lead garments, making sure that your staff are not wearing lead that's cracked or has holes in it, and that your lead garments are marked with a visual cue so that your staff know that they've been checked and that it's current. The next section is we want to see that there is a process in place to determine an action plan if you have to verify and remediate any quality issues, if you have them. If you don't, you'll be able to select not applicable for these. So for the first one, that you have a minimum yearly volume of cases recommended to ensure program process resources are maintained and that they are statistically relevant. A low volume center is defined for TAVR less than 50 per year. A low volume center for SAVR is less than 30 per year. If I click on this drop down here, you're going to see what we're looking for. So we want to see examples to meet this line item or participate in the external review, which is the certification. You're going to submit action plans or your case review, or if you need to, a root cause analysis if you've had a really big fallout. Your action plans will include documentation of the process and corrective initiatives for improvement of individual and composite outcomes. So we're going to be using your registry metrics. You're going to be sharing this with your navigator. They're going to want to see your action plans. You're going to discuss them. Your facility volumes will be validated by your assigned navigator. But remember, if this does not impact you, you will have the option to select not applicable. The last line item is we're looking at trends and suboptimal outcomes, once again addressed with action plans, aggressive case review or RCA. We want to enhance your clinical performance. So your action plan is going to include documentation of processes and corrective initiatives for improvement of individual composite outcomes that are worse than expected as they're reflected in the registry. So again, under your guidance statements, talking about your action plans, your case review, that the review staff will want to look at them, and we're giving you performance requirement examples of what we are looking for. This is the end of all the mandatory documentation for the certification. Remember, everything as far as functionality is on your home screen. You're just going to have the 2 tabs of governance and quality that you're responsible for. This progress bar up here will track your progress. There's going to be a facility submission progress, and then you will have a reviewer progress bar. So as you submit your documentation, this will turn green and climb until you reach 100%. As your assigned navigator reviews it, their bar will also turn green. You can see that I'm logged in up here. Every registered user will have a login. It will give you a countdown. So your days to submit baseline, your days to submit your certification. Everything that you need to know is embedded in here. Don't forget about your additional resources. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. So talking about that baseline gap analysis phase, your accreditation review specialist will be assigned to your facility. You're going to complete that baseline gap within 60 calendar days of access. You'll be responsible for your facility information, your contacts, and your essential component line items that we covered all the mandatory. You're going to have monthly calls scheduled with your review specialist at a minimum, and then you're going to submit that baseline gap analysis. The application phase, requirements for you, all mandatory line items must be met. All line items must be marked yes, that are marked yes, have to have a linked supporting document. Application must be submitted within 12 months of access or prior to your anniversary date if you're going through recertification, which this is a new program, so it is from access. Ongoing participation in the registry. The role of your review specialist is ongoing direction and guidance. They're going to review your documentation. They're going to review your registry data. And then your virtual site visit is going to be scheduled for 30 to 60 days from application submission, and there's no blackout days permitted. For the video site review, the ARS typically schedule a dry run the day before to ensure you have the appropriate IT resources. We use a platform called WebEx. Sometimes with hospital firewalls, there's some issues getting in, so they'll want to make sure that that is functioning appropriately before your actual virtual site visit. Okay, so the video site review, they're going to schedule your site review at your convenience. They're going to provide you an agenda. You're going to go through introductions, a review of your registry metrics. There'll be a roundtable discussion with identified representatives as you're working with your navigator, and then there's going to be a summation. The summation is a casual discussion of observations and opportunities of your facility, and then the review specialist will give you a recommendation, will be offered at the end of that. So whether you should be certified or you should not, based on things that are still outstanding, and that's considered a jeopardy status. The post-site review, you're going to get an executive summary. It's going to show noteworthy observations and opportunities for your facility. The report will show detailed reviewer comments for each individual essential component line item. You're going to still continue to have ongoing feedback from your accreditation review specialist, and once again, that continued participation in the registry. This is the seal. Once you've gone through this entire process, you're going to be sent your certified transcatheter valve seal from the American College of Cardiology, and what comes with it is your marketing kit. So you're going to receive an official certificate for you to frame and hang to promote your achievement, how to download your seals, any additional marketing materials that you want. We have an entire marketing team that is very active on social media. They'll work with your marketing team to make sure that we're getting your achievement out there in this really competitive market. And then the certification phase, there's ongoing process improvement using the tool as your roadmap, ongoing data submission in your registry, ongoing feedback and support from your review specialist. Even after you're certified, we are still your resource. You always have contact. If you need additional information or you're struggling with something in your facility, don't hesitate to reach out. ongoing access to references, shared practices, and tool resources. And then remember, this online platform houses all of your documents for regulatory inspections. ACC has launched the Heart Care Center, which is our National Distinction of Excellence. This is a multifaceted recognition program designed to really promote the hard work of forward-thinking hospitals. To become an ACC Heart Care Center, a hospital must benchmark its cardiovascular practices and demonstrate a commitment to ongoing professional excellence. You have to earn at least 2 ACC accreditations for the foundation of this achievement. And then the third option is either a third accreditation, a certification such as transcatheter valve, or registry participation. There's some additional guidance around the registry that we can give you details. But your assigned accreditation review specialist is happy to share the specific eligibility criteria if you want to begin that work towards being a heart care center. For additional resources, this slide is definitely your friend. Always reach out to your accreditation review specialist first. Email accreditationsupport@acc.org if you have a technical or IT issue, or if your ARS is not available. Always, when you're emailing us, include your facility name, your name, and the accreditation or certification type. And if you have not yet been assigned a review specialist, you can send all of your questions to customercare@acc.org. So I want to thank you for viewing this workshop module. It is a lot of information in a short period of time. It is meant to just give you a global overview of the expectations of the certification. This does complete our training presentation for transcatheter valve certification. We do have question and answer sessions monthly, so make sure you check out the CV Quality website if you have any specific questions regarding any training information presented in this webinar. This is not a you can only sign up once. You can sign up every month while you're working on this to reach out, ask questions, meet people from other facilities working on this. So a lot of resources, and thank you again for choosing the American College of Cardiology as your quality partner.